ready for a fresh start, ready for a new way forward where we see our fellow American not as an enemy, but as a neighbor.
That's Vice President Kamala Harris with the closing message of her presidential campaign, focusing on unity over division. For more on how Democrats view this election, let's bring in someone who knows what it's like to run for president, Pete Buttigieg. Good morning, Pete. How are you doing?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. You've been out on the campaign trail for the Harris-Walz ticket for months now. The day is finally here. How are you feeling about Harris's chances? Do you feel like she is an underdog, or do you feel like she is the front runner right now?
Well, you know, she's had an underdog mentality since she became the candidate, but I've got to say these last few days, I feel a remarkable momentum. I've been in a lot of the key swing states, mostly in Michigan. Just to give you an example, did an event in Midland, Michigan a couple days ago. There was a time when that was a Republican stronghold. We had more than 400 people come out, fired up for her and Democrats up and down the ticket. So the energy is there, but we know this is going to be close. And part of my message to Michigan voters and people around the country is, you know, this election could come down to a couple of votes per precinct. If you've already voted, great. Then bring a friend or talk to somebody in your life about what this election means to you. And if you haven't voted, please exercise that hard-won Democratic right today.
Yeah, it always boils down to voter turnout. Pete Buttigieg, good to see you. You know, people consider you very level-headed, the grown-up in the room. I want to talk to you about the temperament in the country. Both sides say that this is mean, that this is divisive. Both sides accuse the other of saying, listen, it's the end of democracy, depending on how this turns out. What do you say to voters today that are actually kind of afraid? They're afraid to go to the polls. They're afraid about how it's going to turn out. What do you say about the temperature in the country at this time?
Well, I think that's part of what's on the line in this election and a clear difference between the two candidates. The rhetoric has been hot all around, but I want to make sure there's no false equivalencies here. Kamala Harris has said that if you disagree with her, she wants you at the table. She has pledged to include Republicans in her cabinet. She has a record number of prominent Republican leaders campaigning for her or with her. Donald Trump has said anyone who disagrees with him is, in his words, the enemy. And that's true whether he's talking about Democrats or even just Republicans who have dared to criticize him. So there is a clear difference in how either of these candidates would treat the other side. That's important because after this election, we're going to have to come together as a country. We're never going to agree on everything. That's what politics is about, hashing out our differences on fiscal policy, social policy, but we've got to do it as one country. And I got to say, one more part of the closing argument I'm making for Kamala Harris is that a vote for Kamala Harris is, I think, a vote for someday having a more normal Republican Party again. I think a lot of us just don't want to feel like politics is punching us in the face every time we turn on the news, but it's felt that way ever since Donald Trump entered politics. I think we have a chance to turn the page on that and get to a better place. Again, we'll always disagree, but we can be better at disagreeing in this country.
Mr. Mayor, let me ask you, the former president held a campaign rally last night in Michigan. In his final pitch to voters, he talked about us having a strong economy if he's elected. He says the economy will improve. The polls leading up to this election show that voters actually trust the former president on the economy more than they do the vice president. So does that concern you? And what would you say to people who are still worried about the price of groceries, the price of fuel? What is her message to fix inflation, to fix the economy for those who say they're not feeling the economy, the ups that the president has suggested is happening?
Yeah. Well, I think the economy is one of the most important reasons to vote for Kamala Harris. You know, if they follow through on their plans and Trump puts in this tariff, which is an import tax that he wants to impose, that would mean about $4,000 a year for a typical American family in added costs. That's the last thing we can afford, especially after all of that post-COVID inflation. We've finally gotten that back down to about 2%, faster than most other countries, by the way, because, of course, that inflation hit the whole world after COVID. It's caused a lot of pain. But it's why we don't need the Trump strategy of tax cuts for the rich and import taxes for the rest of us. What we need is a strategy to make life more affordable. She's working to expand the child tax credit. Insulin, you know, we got a $35 cap on insulin for seniors. We couldn't get it for every American because Republicans blocked the administration on that. But if she has a Senate majority, could follow through and get that done too. So life will be more affordable under Kamala Harris than under Donald Trump. And jobs will grow more.
Yeah. All right, Pete Buttigieg, thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us. CBS News will have complete election night coverage from our headquarters here in New York City with real-time results, analysis, and exclusive polling. Coverage begins at 4 p.m. Eastern on our CBS News 24/7 streaming channel and at 7 p.m. Eastern on the CBS television network.